Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the House of Swing, Jazz and Lincoln Center here in New York City. It's been over 10 years since I sat down and broke bread with trombonist as well as saxophonist and educator Michael Dease. Now, as you guys know, Michael Dease has been one of the top trombonists here in New York City and abroad, and this gentleman is carrying on the great legacy of great Black American trombonists, ranging from the great J.J. Johnson to the great Julian Priester. But tonight here on the Pace Report, I'm going to introduce you to another side of Michael's musicianship. Over the last 4 years, Michael has, in addition to playing trombone, he's played the baritone saxophone. And he has a very unique album in which he did a tribute record to the great Roy Hargrove, his mentor and friend. His new album titled Groove, which is now available. Now tonight here on the Pace Report, you're going to see the official New York record release performance with the sextet playing music from Groove. And I had a chance to sit down and break bread with Michael to, one, reflect on the legacy and the importance of Roy Hargrove, as well as why he's shifting from playing the trombone to baritone saxophone, as well as we reflect on the legendary David Sanborn, who made his transition a little over a month ago. Michael was one of the last musicians that made up David Sanborn's last ensemble, and he toured with them for the last 6 years. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of the official New York record release performance of Michael Dease and his sextet, performing music from his brand new record, this tribute to the great Roy Hargrove, Groove, live at Dizzy's, here on the Pace Report, here in New York City. has changed a lot of people in this industry. It's changed the dynamic of how we process the music, what we do with the music, and how we move it in the future. And you have done just so much across the board, Mike. The last time we sat down, big band.
Big band, that's right.
It was a big band.
Yeah.
And you've done a lot, man. I just want to ask you, how did we get to this point tonight? You've got a brand new record, and honor and tribute to one of the greatest trumpeters of all time. I mean, he's up there with Miles. He's up there with Lee Morgan. He left us so early too, man. Mm-hmm. This is a beautiful tribute to him.
Thank you. Roy gave so much back all the time. I mean, he gave his life to touring and sharing his music and his message as a very young man, and then he went deep into exploration of his voice. We got the Moment to Moment album. We got the RH Factor. I mean, he went on a deep journey into all things like American and black. I mean, it was just a beautiful exposition of the history of our music, and he's been a role model and certainly an inspiration to me and so many others to carry our stories forward and to be brave and courageous and adventurous, trying to grapple with ourselves and find our voice. Yeah, I love Roy for what he stands for how much he gave to the scene and the community. He was a hands-on mentor. I mean, literally hands-on. He would reach over me to play piano, to show me tunes at jazz clubs, so like late after hours. Dease, you need to know this tune, and here's the lyrics. So sing the lyric, play the bass note, da 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 da. He was so many things. He's just like you said, like in the spirit of Dizzy Gillespie, Lee Morgan. I mean, people that led by example, that their style and their music and their humanity all coalesce together to make something larger than life.
It's crazy, Michael. When I first moved here in 2008, I would go to Smalls, just doing my music rounds and just checking out the scene and checking out all the musicians. And every blue moon, I would see this little man with a hat with some tennis shoes, and he would open up that case and he would get on that band stage and blow the hell out of New York City. And that would happen on many, many nights at Smalls, man. Tell me about your experiences with Mr. Hargrove.
I saw Roy at Cleopatra's Needle before it closed. He would make the rounds because he cared about what was happening at night in the establishments. Like I feel like he kind of carried 52nd Street in the 1940s and 50s with him. But the spirit of not the retroness, or not anything fake or phony. It was very like an authentic energy of living and breathing inside of this music. So he brought that with him wherever he went. People were struck by how serious he took his trumpet playing, and that he didn't have a lot of time for talking nonsense or anything. He was real and listened and gave you his all. Steve Davis and Roy Hargrove were contemporaries, same generation, and getting to hear one of my heroes, Steve Davis, play with another one of my heroes, Roy Hargrove, that was so inspiring. It made me want to reach out and touch that energy that they have, and so it's really special. He left this big footprint among the community, and we're all stronger and better and warmer and more considerate because of Roy.
Mm-hmm. What was it about Roy that he saw in you that was like, this you're gonna be this new dude? What was it about him that he took to you as far as not only how you played the trombone, but how you took this music in?
You know, I would just have to speculate, but I feel that if him seeing something that he liked in me, it would probably had to do with like me at that time, like trying to really be present in the moment in the music. So trying to listen and contribute something that will elevate the band or the musical situation, not be selfish, not be gimmicky, not be not be inauthentic. So things that I learned from playing with the Heath brothers, with Jimmy Heath, with the big band. You know, I was one of those younger folks that I loved being around wisdom. I loved being around elders that had opinions and information and advice, and I was very not shy about asking them for guidance. So when I play, I tried to use those sort of those sage tips and wisdom in my own playing, trying to phrase, trying to play the blues, trying to really mean it, and take my time and tell a story. You know, things that at that time they weren't explained or taught very well in school. So I think trying to be on that mindset let me get to some music that spoke to Roy. And little did I know, but at that time, one of his trombone players had left town. So it just being prepared, trying my best, trying to stay humble, and getting a chance to do my thing and be myself in front of one of my heroes. And it's funny, like when you give yourself to the music, when you relax and listen and contribute, and you think of it in a selfless way, you forget who's listening to you. You know,
it's funny you say that, because Roy embodied that. Like when I listen to Erykah Badu and I hear the D'Angelo, and then I hear the live album he did with Michael Brecker and Herbie Hancock, it was like he really assimilated into the role of Black American music. He embodied what is really lacking in today's musician. All of these musicians, and I'm seeing this, and I don't want to sound negative, but what I'm seeing is they want to hear just this music and they want to stay in this lane. And Roy was so everywhere.
Roy could play any style.
Yeah,
he could. I mean, you could take his cuts from all of his albums. They all. I mean, he was able to get sublime, nuanced, restrained, contemplative. I mean, he could scream and holler like he's in church at the United House of Prayer. He can play like funky, slick stuff like Strasbourg, Saint Denis. He can play bop. He can take it left and out and abstract. I mean, nothing. You know, it's kind of. I mean, this is a joke, but it's kind of like nothing's safe, because Roy's going to spend time to understand what it's about. He can play free, he can play avant-garde, and he didn't do this, you know, out of like a craft person type mentality of like, you know, well, I need to know how to sight read. I need to know how to play different dynamics. You know, I want to be prepared to play like shows or pop gigs or studio dates. He did it out of a complete love for music. Like he just loved everything he played, and I mean the music, not what he played. I'm not sure even Roy had an opinion of like of how just killing or amazing he was. He was too focused on giving. That's something I really respect about him, and it's something I aspire to.
And it's crazy, because I look back at Roy. I remember a gentleman in Detroit gave me Roy and Vanessa Rubin's very first album. And I knew when I heard both of them, I said, wow, they're gonna really shock the jazz scene, and they did. And Roy because they were label mates. They were label mates. Roy had this thing where the music was over here. Every record was bipolar opposite of what he did on the last album. It was like a continuation and a continuum of how he saw where this music should go. Do you find that that was what made his big band so unique?
Yeah, that's a nice context to put that in and compared to the big band, because his big band is what is the spirit of the band made it. Oh gosh, I don't know how to say. Like seeing Roy in front of his big band, and the glow and the excitement and the pride and I mean pride in the most loving sense. You know, to see how seriously he took playing parts and playing melodies. I mean, it makes you crave being in a big band. It made me desperate to start a big band, because I wanted to tap. I wanted to know what that feeling that Roy had. I mean, it's like almost like a drug, and that I feel the same way when I look at Dizzy Gillespie and the videos in front of his band, where he is just completely in his element. I mean, it must feel like a ring shout in the Gullah tradition, or you know, like in church of laying hands on people, or it's a very high spiritual release. It's the best feeling. And when I started my big band, we were working. We did that last interview. It's a magical feeling, seeing all these people here coming together for one purpose, listening to each other, you know, giving of themselves to make something bigger than all of us. I mean, that's the best. Yeah.
What did you take away from the big band? I mean, I've heard stories from musicians who've played and recorded and toured with Roy over the years, and it seems like the record companies really, as much money as he's made, that the label, they were really never satisfied. They wanted to keep him doing these stagnant projects, as I see. Do you think that he had an issue with trying to move forward, like the last 5 years of his life, trying to do the projects he wanted to do?
Without having a lot of expertise on what was happening behind the scenes, but seeing it, you know, I saw that happening. You know, I remember when those records came out, and I remember the projects changing when I felt like they could have kept going. And he still did the band. He still convened the band. You know, I almost wonder if it's really hard for artists, like true artists, like Roy Hargrove is a true artist. I mean, he does it because he has to. He doesn't do it to make a ton of money. He didn't do it for any sense of like glamour or fame. Like the art and the joy and the love of the music was sufficient for him. And I think big labels have trouble with that, because they can't control you. You know, if there's not some greedy climbing, you know, ladder climbing part of you that wants to use the label to get to some, you know, super high position or something, then the label has no power over you. You know, they can't, you know, it's hard when you don't want anything, you know. And so I think Roy was just a special cat that was on that level of artistic integrity and independence, and that sometimes doesn't make for a great label and artist partnership.
and two for tea, just me for you and you for me alone. Nobody near us to see us or hear us, no friends or relations or weekend vacations. We won't have no near, we own a telephone here. Day will break and I'll awake and start to bake a sugar cake for you to take, for all the boys to see. We could raise a family, a boy for you, a girl for me. Can't you see how happy we'd be, very happy? Can't you see how happy we would be?
You are a proficient trombonist. You have set a lane there. And then I'm seeing a video of you playing this thing, and I'm like, how the hell did this happen? Because not only are you carrying the great lineage of great trombone players like J.J. Johnson and Julian Priester. Now, when I think of this thing, I think of guys like Jerry Mulligan.
Mm-hmm.
I think of guys like Harry Carney from the Ellington Band.
Oh yeah.
And I'm looking at you and I'm like, how did we get to this new intersection of your musical career?
Right. It's a good question. I played saxophone from 11 to 17, but not bari. I played alto and tenor. And then I switched to trombone when I was 17. And so that became my new love, and so I've devoted all this time to trombone, and I still do. This doesn't replace trombone. This is an addition to, but I was playing it about 3 years ago, and it just my technique came back to me, and I felt a connection, not unlike I felt when I started playing trombone, and those voices that you named, like Harry Carney and Jerry Mulligan and Pepper Adams, and they started talking to me, and I started listening, and I just felt like the baritone saxophone does not get enough love, and I felt that way about the trombone when I started playing trombone, and it just felt like the right path to pick this up and to start working on it. I started working as a side person on people's records, and I would just mention, I said, hey, I play bari sax too, and they said, oh, great. So I'm on Anthony Stanko's, one of his recordings. I'm on upcoming Ryan Keberly album, octet album, and his octet playing a baritone. I play a couple of tunes with Alton Sinclair on the Positone label. So I've been, and then on my records I have 2 bari records now. I also played some bari on The Other Shoe, which is the music of Greg Hill. So I've been working it in and shedding on it, and it feels like a different side of my personality that it's ready to talk and ready to come out and be a part of my contribution to music. So
how is it different as far as, because trombone, the wind, you're using the louder breathing techniques.
Uh-huh.
It's a little more strict, but it's a little more, you're more, what's the word I want to use? How you phrase when you play a trombone is totally different how you play this. What are the similarities and contrasts of playing those instruments?
To what you're saying, I feel like the phrasing, like the phrasing feels different, which is, you're saying the air. I feel like the air is very similar. Like you have to fill up, you have to have a reservoir, you have to have good air control to get the type of tone and fullness that you want. But then the phrasing, the instrument's mechanics have so much to say about how you phrase on the instrument. So with the slide, you know, there's only two things you can do. You can go out and go in. You can stay the same. With the saxophone, you have dozens of keys and buttons and alternate fingerings and things, and having those options. And then, you know, the different, you know, having a reed, you know, the reed on the trombone is our lips, right? And so we have to make our lips vibrate. With this, I just have to make a seal, like a circular seal around, and my air will vibrate. So in a sense, playing the saxophone is less demanding endurance-wise, because I'm using a different set of muscles, and I don't have to be the reed.
Wow.
So I like that, and I like, you know, the saxophone is really built to be played logically and easily. So like when I think about like the history of saxophone, it's inspiring to see how many people use the same set of fingerings to influence like their style, their vertical playing, their linear approaches, how they subtone, how they play overtones and false tones, and it's a whole new kind of slew of options.
You know, Mike, I'm a huge black music fan, soul music, and 60s and the 50s you heard a lot of great solo baritone saxes.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's like, what happened to is it because it's big? Is it because the tenor and the alto kind of filled why is it that we got away from the baritone in modern popular music?
Ooh, well, that's a great question. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. Because that's where I fell in love with the saxophone. It was actually on Big Joe Turner's Corina with the big tenor saxophone solo. Then a lot of that music, my father liked doo-wop music and, you know, and the original rhythm and blues, you know. So he was into that. And then there's a lot of baritone saxophone on that as well. I don't, you know, to me, I started to hear a shift when Fred Wesley made the trombone popular with the JBs and James Brown. Like that brass punch thing, like completely
70s funk bands.
Yeah, it's like a big fist coming at you. So I you know, Fred Wesley's a huge influence on me, and then although I'm not as familiar with it, but Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass and the trumpets got in there, and so I think it just kind of diversified the sound of horn bands, so they didn't rely so much on Barry and tenor in that sound.
And having the Wrecking Crew backing those Herb Alpert records,
right,
slicked it up a little bit.
And then Tower of Power,
yeah,
and so but yeah, I don't think it's because the Barry is lacking anything. I think that they spread some love around, and you know, but I miss it. But I also don't miss it because I go back and listen to the music from the 50s and 60s all the time. Like that's what got me excited about playing the instrument, was hearing those like tenor saxophone solos and hearing the Barry play, you know, the rhythm parts. It was a beautiful sound. And my favorite Barry player, the person that made me realize that I could go after a sound that I like on this instrument, is Sonny Stitt.
Wow.
Sonny Stitt recorded this album called it's live at the maybe the Half Spot in Boston, and it's he did a song called Tri-Horn Blues where he plays he plays Barry, tenor, and alto.
Wow.
And I heard the Barry and I said, what? Oh, it's so smooth. It's kind of like it's.
Well, Sonny Stitt was an incredible. He's criminally underrated.
Oh man.
Reed player. He was ridiculous.
Yeah. When I heard him play Barry, I said, you know what? And he doesn't play it like Jerry. He doesn't play it like Harry Carney. Doesn't play it like Pepper. He plays his style of Barry, which is a little bit of Bird and Lester Young and Sonny Stitt's, blues presence.
With the grit, with a little bit of that grit.
It sounds so good.
Yeah.
So, but he didn't record extensively on Barry, so it made me feel like I can't, like one thing that's important to me is to try not to mix art and vanity. Like there's some things, like if I want like a nice watch, that I might save up and buy this watch, and that's totally a vanity thing, because I'm not trying to resell it. I'm not a collector. I want that. It's fancy, it's expensive, and I like watches. So, but for art, the reason's got to be different. Like I can't play Barry because it's like, hey, look at me, or look what I can do, or guess how many instruments I can play. Like that's not enough. I don't feel good about things like that. Like it has to make sense, and so it's important that I feel like what I have to say on the Barry, that there's a place for it, and that I'm contributing something to the instrument. That's my goal.
saddened when David Sanborn left us.
Oof.
When I was 4th, 5th, 6th grade, when I started to really listen, Sanborn was one of my first go-to guys. And I watched him evolve. I used to listen to a syndicated radio show living in Indianapolis every Sunday morning before church. I used to watch night music.
Oh man.
I used to go see him live on many occasions. You were one of the last musicians in his last working band. Give me some reflections and your take on this man. Because this guy, him, the Brecker brothers, Steve Gadd, Eric Gale, and I'm leaving out 2 musicians, were the John Faddis, were the embodiment of some very important session musicians here in New York in the 70s and the early 80s.
Yeah, oh man. David Sanborn. I'm trying to... All right, so my first time getting aware of David Sanborn was going to the music store called World of Music in Augusta. And this would have been 1992. And I had just started playing alto saxophone, and I went to the store to get some reeds, and they had music books in the stand, like different books, and one of them was a Hal Leonard Artist Transcriptions, and it said David Sanborn, and he had his headshot on the cover, you know, and it said, you know, the solos by the master or something like that. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this guy must be incredible. He's got a book made after him, is all his solos. I looked through it, and I was like, I was a beginning band student, and I said, I could never play these. But I got to look up David Sanborn. So I started looking him up, and you know, his sound is the first thing that gets you. His sound, and then very quickly thereafter his rhythm, and then the feeling of the blues that he always plays with. And so I said, wow, this is different than the smooth jazz they were playing on the radio.
Right.
And this is before I knew anything about like the heaviness of his career with Butterfield Blues Band and Gil Evans and the Brecker Brothers. I didn't know any of that stuff, but I just knew like the Maputo and the big hits and
Straight to the heart.
yeah. Those things, and my friends' parents knew about David Sanborn, and so that I had this idea that this was a seminal figure in the music, and so like fast forward, you know, I switched to trombone. I go to Juilliard, and we do a 10-year reunion of the program. So this would have been 2011, and they bring alumni back to play in a band, and one of the guest artists were, I think, Christian McBride, and Benny Golson, and Joe Wilder, and David Sanborn. So David Sanborn is hanging out and listening to the band rehearse, and we play a tune with them, and I had a solo on the concert, and I was playing bass trombone. So I'm kind of out of my comfort zone, and I had to take this solo, and I was thinking, well, I hope that was okay. And as I'm leaving, David comes up to me and says, hey man, you know, you sound great, you know, we gotta play together. And I'm thinking like, oh, he's being nice, like this is, you know, he must be a really kind, like encouraging. So his friend comes up to me and sends me an email right then. It says, hey, David wants your contact. And I couldn't believe it. This was 2011. So I wrote him an email. We never got together. It just, I think things got busy. And then 2018, I got a call from his manager. And David wanted me to go on a European tour. And I said, how did he find out about me? And he said, well, he heard you on the radio. And he said, who's that trombone player is who I want. He sounds like the guy I heard at Juilliard. And it was me. So the tour started on I had to leave July 8th. My second daughter, Charlie, was due July 8th. So my wife was like, hey, this is important. I understand if you need to do that. And I said, listen, let's play it by ear. So we stayed. Charlie, my 6-year-old daughter currently, came out right in the morning in time. So I, held her for a little bit, and then I got on my plane later that day and toured with him for almost 6 years. And he was kind and thoughtful and mentoring, and he played every note like it was his last. And
He sure did.
And it was a highlight of my life to get to play in that band. And I miss him. I think about him every day. And he was great to my wife and my kids. He sent me a video on my 40th birthday. I mean, just things I'm not even comfortable talking about. He was such a sweet guy. And long talks about saxophone. He let me play sax and trumpet on his gigs. He was all just in the same thing with Roy. Him and Roy were tight. Like, they were adventurers. They liked to try things, They weren't worried about things being perfect, but they wanted to do their best all the time. And that selfless energy and giving back and making a community that's the common thread here. And that's the footsteps that I'm trying to follow in. And it's not easy, but when you have beacons like Roy Hargrove and David Sanborn and Rodney Whitaker and the Brecker brothers and Winton and Christian McBride, you have people that are constantly reinventing themselves and bringing along their crew and their people with them, and making the world more intelligent and informed about the music. That's to me, that's God's work, and I want to be involved with it.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the House of Swing, Jazz and Lincoln Center here in the heart of New York City. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Michael Dease for his time. Make sure you support his brand new album, Groove, which is available on iTunes, Amazon.com, as well as CD Baby. Also, for more information on his upcoming tour dates and lecture dates, please visit him online at michaeldease.com and follow him on social media by way of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at Jazz and Lincoln Center and Dizzy's for their warm hospitality. Also, Roberta Lawrence and Don Lukoff of Don Lukoff Media for arranging my time with Mr. Dease. As always, people, I can't stress this more than enough. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, and leave comments, as well as follow me on social media by way of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.